Hey, I'm Twila.
And I'm Natalie.
And you're listening to Twila and Natalie.
We're going to talk to you about the joys and the pitfalls of being a grown woman, but in a little mini version where we're going to hit upon some topics that we have thoughts about and topics that our listeners have wanted to hear about.
That's right. And today we're talking about ambition.
Ambition.
Are you ambitious?
I am now. Okay. I was not before. This is new to me. Ambition is new. I mean, and people, I'm talking like really new. You know?
She's like 5 minutes ago.
You know, I've been a parent for 27 years and almost 28 years. And so for all of my adult life, because I became a mom at 19, my ambitions revolved around my children and my ambitions for my children. My ambitions were more limited to as a mother.
Okay, I got
as
you.
a wife, as a partner. They were limited. When I talk about ambition today, it is ambitions for myself. What do I want? What do I want to aspire to? Where do I want to be? The idea that, you know, I want to live in this place and I want to buy this kind of a house. I want to do this type of work and I want to do this much of it. I want to make X amount of money and actually have a plan to do it. Those are ambitions that for me are new, because before, like I said, it was mainly it was more in one line, if you will, with being a mom and partner.
I think my ambition has always existed, and I just always dialed it down to 2 for other people.
I would agree with that about you. I could totally see that.
Yeah, I was always a person who had like real genuine things I wanted to go do in the world.
Yeah.
And then because I always tried to put other people's comfort ahead of my own need.
Yeah.
Like I didn't ever want people to feel, I never wanted to put people.
You didn't want to outshine them.
Yeah. And that was,
you did the dim your light thing.
Oh yeah. I dimmed my light till there was no light.
Yeah.
And I was very good at making sure like I would redirect my ambition to other people in support of their ambition. So I was, when I was young, it was, I can do well. Let's go on to do too well, because I don't want my older sister to feel bad that she didn't do as well as me.
Yeah. Did you find, though, in doing that or doing things that way, in dimming your light, it didn't make them shine brighter?
No, it didn't make them shine brighter. Here's the thing. It didn't make me shine brighter. It didn't make them shine brighter. It didn't make me feel better. It didn't actually make them feel better, because they didn't actually realize I was doing it.
Sure. And they wouldn't have felt good if they knew you were doing it for that reason. Because it could come across as being condescending.
Yeah, well, honestly, and then here's the thing, and I will fully admit it was incredibly condescending, in that the idea was like, I must think so much of myself that I need to be less important so that you don't feel like a peon. And it was, and now, and that's like arrogance and bravado that comes from being young. But there was also a very large part of me that
there was compassion there as well.
Yeah, but there was always been a part of me. I've always had a very tuned in gut instinct. Like I've always known how to listen to my gut, even at a young age. And I've always just known if something was going to happen, it was just going to happen. And I would literally try to circumvent that feeling to keep from having to like deal with the fallout of that feeling. So, like when I went to college and my mom said she was not going to pay for an art degree, even though I knew I'd be perfectly fine and could live well and be happy with an art degree. I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. It wasn't even about, I'm just do what my mom says. It was, I didn't want her to, there was some reason that she kept saying she kept saying things like, we don't do that. Yeah. And we meant like our family, our culture, women, black people, we don't do that. And something about that made her uncomfortable. She couldn't see the path because nobody she knew had ever been on the path. Yeah. So I just decided not to upset the apple cart and just followed the path, because that made life easier for her and that made life easier for me. It wasn't smart, and I wound up being circumvented for a long time out of creative work when I could have been happily in creative work. Yeah. Even, so when I got married to my husband, when we met in college, we were equals in college. When we got to the point where it was like, okay, we're going to get married and have this family now, I didn't even think twice about shifting down so that I could be in support of him. Like I used to joke about it for years, but and I still joke about, like I'd give good trophy wife. When I show up for events, when I show up for things, it's not about me. I make sure that it's all focused on him.
Yeah, you're representing your family.
Yeah, and the thing is, I do that, like, I put the level of effort and ambition behind that that people would put behind like getting a job. Like I show up well read, well versed, pulled together. My kids are impeccable. I'm impeccable. When you're at the end of the night, my goal at the end of the night was always people should look at his family and say, wow, he's really lucky to have that. Like he must be really impressive if that's his family.
Sure.
You know, that was always the goal. It was never like personal ambition. This whole room full of people are people I could have probably worked for networking or jobs or opportunities. And I never put that energy behind it. It was always all like, let me steer you back to my husband. Let me steer you back to my husband.
Well, that's, you know, it's interesting because and like how you said it, you never thought, well, I'm going to take a step down, because it's not that role. You're not taking a step down. If anything, I see it as you're elevating, because you're elevating, you're holding your husband up, but also your family.
I always felt like I was elevating at the expense of me.
Because
I could have easily done all of that and still been sort of personally ambitious in that way.
Sure.
But there was a part of me
and you're talking about during those years when you were raising your kids?
Yeah, like when they were little. Yeah. Like when we were first really establishing ourselves as like actual adults. Sure. Like real grown-ups. Yeah. You know, because there's that point where you get out of college and you kind of piss around and you're sort of a grown-up, but you're not really, because you still make a lot of like, where there's a point as an adult where you decide, I'm going to be a real adult. I'm going to have real responsibilities. I'm going to take this on. And we did, and I just immediately, and the thing is, I immediately tried to shift and turn and put myself into a role that is not naturally my anything. My natural instinct is not to be like Susie Homemaker. My natural instinct is not to be second. Yeah. It just isn't. And I spent a lot of years trying to make myself the comfortable second, because I thought that that's what you needed to do to be supportive.
So are you saying then, because I have a different take on it. I
would love to hear your take on
it. What you and I have in common is we both spent years being at-home moms. Yes. Being stay-at-home moms. Yes. And, you know, my view on it was always, and maybe it's different because when I was younger, you and I also had different paths. You know, I did not go to college because, again, there wasn't a personal ambition. I always knew I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to write, but even more my desire to be a mom and have a family.
See, that was never my ambition.
Yeah. So and I think that is part of the difference. So I never saw it as taking a lesser role, because I think you have to, in every family dynamic, you have to have your roles, whether they are traditional roles or not. You agree. You do this well, so you take that. You do this, I do this well, so I'm going to take that.
See, now if we had followed that idea of like who does what well, I wouldn't have done this at all.
Now I didn't do that.
Okay. So you and me both, sister. You and me both.
Didn't do that till much later in a later relationship. So during that time, again, because I didn't have a lot of personal ambition, I didn't see it as taking a second seat. But I was, because it was all I knew. Again, I was a mom from the time I was 19. Yeah. What other focus and ambition am I going to have? Because once we have children, it's easy to say before you have kids, well, when I have a child, you know, I'm, and you can have plans and still work full time and have your career, and absolutely. But there is something that happens in your mind and your world where those children are now above, you know, their needs come before just about everything else. And it's finding that balance, because it shouldn't always be that way. There's kind of a time and a place for it.
Yeah. And I think I happily stepped in. I think one of the biggest pitfalls I had with my ambition is that a time came where all of those roles sort of got pushed together, like when you take different color Play-Doh and just make it into one like weird color. Yeah. So in my head, I was going to be a mom. I'm going to be a great mom. I'm going to stay home with these kids. I'm going to be an excellent mom. And I was, and I am an excellent mom. I am a crappy housewife. I am. But a lot of times it's equated that those two things are supposed to go together, because you're already here. You're here.
Now, are you talking in terms of like domestic duties?
Yeah, even
things
like
around the house.
Well, honestly, like everything from like the actual things you do around the house to sort of how the roles sort of play out. Like I still very much wanted to exercise my own ambition, and to exercise my ambition and to figure out what I wanted to do required me to do things like be away from my family in ways that on the surface look selfish. Like, yeah, I need to go to the library for a little while and do some research on this thing, or I want to go to see this theater production, or I met this person and they're really cool and I'd love to sit down and talk to them for a little bit.
And that felt selfish.
It felt selfish, and because I didn't have a traditional ambitious track that people understood from like I'm not going to be a lawyer, I'm not going to be a doctor. I was trying to go figure it out. Yeah. It seemed like, what are you doing? with your time. Like your time should be spent here. Like if you don't, and we've talked about that. We've talked about that idea of, when you're a mom, you kind of believe, and society tries to make you believe that all you can have is a focus on your
all
kid.
You can be is that there is, and that's
that's the job right now. Like you shouldn't be trying to do anything else. Like moms, like you're a mom, you shouldn't drink cocktails. You're a mom, you're a mom, you shouldn't wear your skirt like that. You're a mom, you should be going to concerts.
Get off that bar counter,
right? It's like it's all of these things where like now you're in a box, and those weird boxes really do hamper and hurt people. Your ambition in the overall, because you start to think, what am I allowed to do? And I remember really sort of fighting against that. And it took until my kids were old enough. It really took until my kids were old enough to be able to fend for themselves a little bit, for everybody in my life, not just my kids, my husband, but for everybody in my life to go, oh, I get it. You have other things you want to do. Yeah. Like there was a point in time where nobody seemed to get that
you had other things you wanted to do.
Yeah. And not even just wanted, that I needed to do.
Exactly. Especially with our children, it's hard. It's difficult for them because all they ever know us as is mom. Yeah, that is the box they put us in. They don't see us as sexual beings or
I don't
having
want desires.
That's therapy bills. Yeah.
It's okay.
But it's having desires and ambitions. When I got into my 40s and I look back at my mom, and my mom passed 5 years ago, and I look at the age that I am now and looking back when she was that age, and she was a grandma because I had my kids then, and knowing what I feel and what I desire and ambitions that I have today, I realized, wow, you know what? She had her own ambitions. Yeah. She similarly, we either let it be dictated for us, or we start to follow a path that we feel society expects us to follow and be in, and on that course, on that path. Yeah. But absolutely. We each individually have things that we aspire to or would like to achieve, whether it's like it was creatively for you, and it's so much of what you're doing today. And for me, the same thing. I'm doing today what I've always wanted to do. And, and my kids are adults now, and that's the beauty of it. Many people these days, I feel they're not having kids till later, till they're even 30, 31.
Girl, we just saw somebody on the news the other day. It was like 48.
Oh, that's okay. That's just crazy.
They're playing it, but they're playing with it, but they're trying. They're doing it.
I don't think that's a good idea, but to each his own. But they have, it changes your entire course of where you're going when you have kids versus when you don't. And it's interesting for me, it's been interesting at my age. I'm 47. I'm turning 48. And going, wow, okay, my kids are adults. What do I want to do? And I realized I was keeping myself in a box. I was keeping myself in this, okay, I'm allowed to do this because I'm a mom. I'm allowed to do that. And I've been pushing those boundaries more for years. And I think it's because I never had it on the front end. You know what I'm saying? When you're younger and you're doing all these different things and experiences.
And sometimes you can't get to that if you don't see it. I mean, it's
exactly.
the thing.
Or you don't think it's a possibility.
Yeah, if it's not a possibility because it's never been modeled for you.
Exactly.
One of the biggest sort of offshoots of this sort of newfound sense of like embracing my ambition that I've been trying to really just hammer home to my children and all the young people in my life is you're allowed to go out in the world and find the thing you're most passionate about. Yeah. Find it. Find the thing you love with all your heart. Chase it. Grab it. Fight for it. Build it into what you want it to be. Yeah. And I always tell them it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to say you're going to go out like you say, I want to be an actor. You're not going to go to LA and become an actor. You're going to go to, I said, if that means you go to school and you study your craft and then you do theater productions and you work a crappy day job or 2 crappy day jobs. And, but this thing you're passionate about, you just keep pursuing a little bit every single day. That's what I'm talking about. If you want to have your own business,
then you're happier when you're pursuing those dreams and ambitions.
Yeah, I don't want anybody doing like I spent a good 15 years of professional work doing, menial work, like the kind of stuff where if you don't have a career path, you just wind up,
at a job.
Yeah, you wind up at a job, just getting a check. I don't want anybody to go get a check because everybody has something that they love to do, even if it doesn't make sense to anybody but you. Trust me. 2 years ago when I sat down and said, I want to do this thing, I described it to everybody the same way. I said, I have an idea. I have no money. It doesn't make sense yet, but here's what I want to do. Yeah. I'm going to figure out how to get it done. Mm-hmm. Can you help? Do you want to help? Yeah. And and it did sound crazy on the surface. And I didn't have any idea what I was doing when I started. But I understood that if you're passionate about it and you're willing to put effort behind it and you're willing to work and you're willing to make sacrifices for it, you can get there. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I won the lottery or I'm Oprah now.
Yeah.
But you can make a space in the world for the thing that you love to do.
Yeah, there's somehow always a way. Where and it sounds cheesy. It's like if you believe it, you can be it. But there's a lot of truth in that. If you don't accept the limitations, if you don't accept, by many schools of thought, with my background growing up the way I did and not going to college. And again, I'm not saying don't go to school.
Emails to Natalie, please.
I'm not saying grow up in a cult, don't go to school. Life will work out great for you. It has had its challenges, but on paper, I should not be doing what I'm doing today and have the success that I've experienced and I'm experiencing and that I'm heading to. Mm-hmm. These opportunities on paper should not be there. You cannot accept that. When it's something you really want to do, there's always a way to do it. And you may hear no a lot, and you may not. But when you pursue those things that excite you, those things you really want to do, I think it just always has a way of working out as long as you don't accept that it can't be done.
Well, I just keep saying you get one life. Mm-hmm. You really only get one ride.
You may as well go balls out.
That's exactly what I've been saying. I've been telling everybody, listen, there's something that you love to do, even if it just becomes your side hustle, even if it becomes just your favorite thing. That's where you spend your energy when you're not doing other things. Yeah. Go find that thing. I promise you, if you go find that thing, you will find a way to do it. I'm not saying everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. You can love, my niece loves makeup. She loves makeup. So she kept saying in school she's going to study this and study that. So she had a very sort of efficient degree and she can use it in the real world. But what she spends most of her time doing is working a job where she gets to do makeup all day. Yeah. And she loves it. Yeah. And she's happy and her bills are paid. Yeah. And so she's now found a way to do the thing that she loves while she's sort of plotting out how to translate that to a grander ambition. Yeah. Everybody can find a way to do that.
Yeah, and your ambition doesn't have to be related to, because I want X amount of money. Right. Or I want this type of a big house. It's what really lights a fire under your butt. You get excited mind you, you wake up in the morning and you want to get out of bed because you're going to go do this thing.
Yeah, now mind you, if money is your thing, because I know some people that money is their thing. Yeah. Good for you.
But it's usually it's the money, but the money is providing something.
Well, money
and that is it, whether it's the security, whether it's the ability to travel, the freedom that it brings. Well, it's really about that.
My definition of money is money allows you to dictate time.
Exactly.
And that's profound. So steer your ambition. Like ambition I say it's a tool just the same way as, having a college degree is a tool. It's something that you can learn how to hone. You can learn how to direct toward things. You can learn how to put real energy behind it, and really go after the things that you want. But you actually have to recognize that when you have it, that it's okay to have it, and it's okay to use it.
Yeah, I think the millennials are better at this than we were when we were their age.
Absolutely.
When we were in our 20s.
They don't listen to us old fogies, that's why.
No, they're great. They always they even got a term for it, side hustle. Yeah. We called it a part-time job.
Which I'm not even going to, they don't get to have that, because that was something that existed before. We used to, when it was called, side hustles used to be the guy that drove the jitney and the girl that used to bake cakes on the side on the weekend. Now all of a sudden.
Wait, back it up. What's a jitney?
Oh, it's where my mom grew up in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it was basically black people didn't have access to taxis. They just wouldn't take black people in certain areas or past certain areas. Yeah. So then, local black people, most particularly black men, would use their own cars to run essentially taxi service.
It was like Uber back in the day.
Yeah, it was called jitney. So we grew up with jitneys. We grew up in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, all that. If you were going someplace, you had a number that you would call, and you would either you'd call them directly, or there sometimes would be one guy that had 5 guys that worked for him, worked under him. And if you needed a jitney, it was the price was already set. It wasn't like taxi. It was exactly like Uber. It was here's the price from here to here. Yeah. And they would come and get you and come take you. And
wow.
And most of the women in my family didn't drive, so if we needed something, we were in the city and there wasn't anybody around to drive, she called Jenny.
Wow. So what I'm hearing here is the idea and concept of Uber and a side hustle has been culturally appropriated.
Yes, as many things are. Black people are magical, and we make lots of things. You should know that.
It's amazing how many things. It's kind of like that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where they trace all the words back to the Greek root word.
Yes.
I learned so much about, like, Twila's got like, no, that goes back to black people.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. And mind you, all my references are like for as old as I am. I'll be talking to my mom. She'll be like, that did not happen in 1974. You were just born in 1974. Calm down. So if we had to give one piece of advice on being ambitious, what would you tell somebody?
I would say to hone in on what your ambition is, not what your parents want for you, not what your partner wants for you. What do you want for you? And work it from there. Work it backwards. What's your end game? Where do you want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And work it backwards.
That's
what do you need to do to
scary.
Get there?
I just said that to somebody yesterday. I did just yesterday. I asked somebody, what does your end game look like? Because if I know where the end is, I can help you plot the road to get there.
Exactly. You cannot approach something with this vague idea. It'll never happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to know, and you got to be specific
with as much detail, as much crazy detail as possible.
Yeah.
I've told people when you think end game, that means all the way down to, like, this is the office I'm going to sit in. This is what it's going to look like. This is what my view is going to be out of the window. This is how many hours a day I'm going to spend there. This is what it looks like when I wake up in the morning. I said, it sounds crazy, but when you do this, I promise you, it brings this weird sense of calm and clarity.
Yeah.
And then every day you wind up working more and more toward it. And then you get to
have
a
plan.
Listen, you have this weird... You wind up with this weird sensation one day of like, I'm living the thing that I said I was going to live.
Yeah.
I have a journal somewhere in my house where it has written out what do my days working at Matriarch look like, and I wrote with as much detail as possible. Like, I get up and I read in the morning. I get to see my family off to school. We record out of a studio that's not very far from my house. Turns out it's in my house right now, but it was like almost to the letter.
Yeah.
I said, this is how I wanted it to look, and I live that life now.
Yeah, it's like you got to know where you're going. If you get in your car and you're in California and you want to drive to New York.
Yeah, you can't just start driving.
Yeah, number one, you got to know where New York is.
You got to know what direction.
And then you work out a map and you work out a plan and you end up there. If you get in the car with a vague idea of, well, I kind of want to go to the East Coast, but I don't know where, you're never going to leave.
You'll wind up in Illinois.
And you can do the same thing. And my other half advice, think about that in your relationships too. What is your end game with a relationship that you want? What does the end game look like, when you're 80, 90 years old? And if where you're at and what you're doing is not in alignment and going up to that, then what are you doing? If you're dating a guy that you can't see spending into your 90s with, then what are you doing? It's the same thing. You got to know your end game.
Yeah. So I guess my piece of advice is very simple. It's okay to have ambition. And particularly because I know a lot of women listen to this. We make this for women. It is okay to want more for yourself.
Yes.
Than what is
even
in your
when
life.
You have children.
Yeah. Even if you have a good life right now, even if you feel like you're safe and you're secure and you're comfortable and things are good and you're happy, it is okay to want more for yourself. It is okay to want it. It's okay to accept that. It's okay to go after it. I promise you, the people that love and support you, that really get you, they will support that.
Yeah, if you want to knit socks, knit socks.
And literally, if that's what makes you, find that thing that makes you happy and put energy behind it. And be open to what it looks like once you've put that energy behind it. Because you just never know. When I started this, I did not have grand ambitions to have a podcast network. I started out thinking, I would like to have something that belongs to me that I just do to keep, that keeps me creative. And little by little, it got bigger. And to be honest, it's actually already gotten bigger than what we started at now. We're barely sort of hanging on to the thread of calling it a podcast network because it's bigger than that now. But I can see it. And now I'm not afraid of it. And now I'm not afraid of knowing that I have capability to go behind it. And that's what ambition is. Ambition really is knowing that you're capable of going after something that you love. Do that.
Yeah.
Go after the thing that you love.
Yeah, there's value in your passion.
Absolutely. And not just for you, but for the entire world if you put it out there. So on that note, we got all deep for a second.
I know we did.
You should go to the website. Go to matriarchdm.com. Go to Twila and Natalie's show page. You can listen to past episodes. You can email the show. The email address is hello@matriarchdm.com. We would love to hear from you. We will be back very, very soon. In the meantime, we appreciate this so much. We love your support. So we will talk to you